It's good to be back.
And welcome, Roosters, to Rooster Time. I'm the big guy, Scott Ferrara. That's Mike the Grand Poobah Parasini at the Excelsior Pub in Albany. Our home away from home for the Albany people in the Empire State Rooster Boosters. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it to the big list of the night, but shout out to Rob, Wardy, and all the people at the Pig and Whistle right now. Miss you guys. I'll see all you guys next week at the home match. Anyway, listen, we got a match in 29 minutes, baby. We got our first match against Dallas at Choctaw Stadium in Arlington. Mike checking out the weather, checked out with Mike, checked out with our buddy Rick Collins, who runs the Jackal Den too. Anywhere between 37 to 32 degrees, night wind, maybe a little rainy. It was supposed to rain this morning, I believe, and then taper off by match time. It's going to be a cold one. The boys brought the weather with them. I don't know if that's going to be good or bad. I guess we'll find out. Mike, what do you think about the weather down there?
You know what? We talked about, and how the MLR always wanted to play these games in the South right now to start the season off. A lot of these northern teams, Toronto, New England, New York, they weren't getting the chance to play home games for a little bit because it was going to be too cold. Now we're going down south and we're bringing the cold weather with us. I think it feeds into it. I hope it helps us out. To be honest, they've been out all week, training and stuff like that, but up here it's been nice too, so it could be a wash either way, But I'm hoping cold weather helps us out a bit.
Yep, definitely. So we saw some big changes about when was this? Sent about 26 minutes ago on the Rugby New York Instagram post about the starting lineup and the subs. So the biggest thing is we see Ben Bonasso no longer in the top 23 or the top 23, the starting the 23 roster. Jesus, Can I just fumble it a little bit more, Mike? So let me go over the changes on the forward side, and then you can go over the backside changes for New York. So Zach Wilton and Malolo stay the same up front. Nate Brakely moves into that 4 position off the bench. Charlie Hewitt starting again. Will Tucker, who was going to start in that 4 position, actually takes Ben Bonasso's spot at 6. Heine and O'Connor at 7 and 8, or 8 and 7. Round out our forwards. Mike?
So still starting with Connor Buckley at 9. Now at 10, we have Sam Windsor. 11, still the start of Oppie. So finally, we finally get to see some Oppie, power coming through. 12, Jason Emery. 13, Quinn Nawadi. Another one, first start of his season, first game of the season for him. So it's good to be back for him. 14 is Andrew Coe, and then Jack Heighton moving from 10 to 15, kicking Troy Lockyer out of the 23 for this week.
Yeah, so we have Geiger staying as a reserve, Wangluski staying as a reserve, McMahon as a reserve, Vassar as a reserve. You see the addition of Dylan Fawcett and Connor McManus in the reserves, and Andy Ellis and Fassi Fuatai were in the reserves in the previous iteration of the lineup. On pure speculation alone, I had heard that Ben Bonasso was starting at 6 and supposed to be the captain this week. I wonder if he got nicked up or if he maybe got sick, in between everything for him not to feel well enough to play. I would assume if he was going to be named captain for the match, he would do everything he can to stay in the lineup. And for him to be out of the 23, it's just a summation for me just to figure it out,
Maybe some bad Dallas pizza or something like that. Some bad airplane food just got to him. Never take the fish on those long flights. Come on, boys.
I'm sure know that. I'm sure Ben was the first guy to go, I want the fish on the Delta flight. Shout out to our friends over at the Dallas Jackal Den, our buddy Rick Collins. They're having a nice pre-match drink celebration before they all go to Choctaw Stadium. Unfortunately, I didn't see anybody going down there this past weekend. But again, one of those things where Dallas fans were very excited to play, the New York team. They were very excited to have a second home match in a row for them. And I think they're just excited to really have rugby flowing down there. And let's be honest, for an 0-3 team, they're probably the best 0-3 team we've seen in the NLR. They have 2 late losses. the first loss to the AGs, obviously, just kind of a bad loss for them, unfortunately. Listen, first match, you're going up against a powerhouse AG team. Then they're coming around and they're playing, San Diego. They're beating San Diego at halftime and just kind of blow the lead there in the second half. And then last week, playing a powerhouse Houston team, quoting our fellow Rooster Booster, the Monday Morning Fly half, Craig Gradelli, Houston played the best game we've seen them play in 3 years, and they almost lost the match. They won at the death against the Dallas Jackals. And literally the last couple phases of the game, if Dallas could just have held Houston, they would have won the match. So here's the thing: one, is this a letdown game for Dallas, or on the opposite side, is it a letdown game for us, considering we had a very, what I would call, emotional win against ATL last week? Mike, what do you think?
I don't know. I think both teams are coming off hot. Even, Dallas, being that they lost last week, it seemed like they got, their stuff together. The question becomes, though, can they sustain that, past, the 60th minute, the 70th minute, can they hold on? Do they have the fitness? We know Rooney has made, Rugby New York has made those late drives in games where they need to win, where, they'll fight through and they'll battle it out. I think last week we put together like those pieces that we're missing a lot of, especially offensive pieces that we were missing a lot of in that first game that we played against Houston. So the question becomes, do we continue that even with, the new additions of, some guys on offense? Like, are they there on the program? Do they know what they're doing? I think they do. I'm hoping they do. These are some great, with the inclusion of Appy and Quinn, those are two great offensive weapons that we've been, without for the past, 2 weeks. And so hopefully, we continue, running strong. You still just can't count out Dallas. And let's just hope, maybe they make that same fatal error of, running out of steam a little too early for us.
And we wonder if we can still have that gas late in a match, trying to do it 2 matches in a row. It's tough. So I'm going to talk about the Dallas Jackals starting 15. From what I can tell, it seems as though it's the same pack up front: Murray, Frings, and Tucci at your 1, 2, and 3. Bronson, Tellis, and Leinertz at your 4 and 5. Matarazzo, Abdelmanim, sorry, I always fuck his name up, and Rora at 8. Here's the thing: Tellis, Leinertz, Matarazzo, and Adomamnon, they're 4 through 7. Play with the ball in hand a lot. They like to punish people. Think of Hanko Lights, but 4 of them. So these guys scare me. They don't scare me as much in the set piece as much as they will be on the outside of a pod. You'll see Bronson Tellis quite like Hanko, or quite like Fawcett on the outside of a pod. And all of a sudden, he's the support guy running step for step with a guy like Aaron Gray, who's wicked fast. And he's the open man on the pass, and all of a sudden he's scoring, and you're like, how the fuck did the guy get out of there? I think that's what you have to be careful about. 8. Going back, Brusati, Tom Brusati making his first MLR start right now against New York, because Carlo Denyson went out with a leg injury last match. Carl Say back at 10. Aaron Gray again, speedster. Honestly, I think he still has Rookie of the Year potential. I believe he scored last match. He was my early Rookie of the Year pick. London, Trinder, Johnstone, and Chris Pinnell makes it back up into lineup. And Chris Pinnell, quite like Jack Hayton, has a booming boot. Brendan Rams back in the MLR, getting on his first cue sheet. I don't think he played all of last year. I don't think he was rostered. A friend of mine, actually, so I'm glad to see Brendan Rams not only on a roster, but actually in the 23. Quite like, I put him up with a Dylan Fawcett, with a Zach Tuolafu, a Lerone White, a Chris Shade, where he's good in the set piece, but he's also great, with the ball in hand. So, I think you're going to see some stuff here. All right, I'm just getting some text messages from some of the guys at Starfire. That caught right out there at Starfire saying the buzz is electric for their 8 p.m. start. But yeah, I think what we have to do is dominate the set piece. I think we can dominate the set piece against Dallas. I think our 1-2-3 combination at any combination is a starting lineup for any team in the MLR, to be quite honest. So I think what it comes down to is you're right, is how does the flow go with Appy and Quinn back? I do like Jason still back there. Eddie Fidel got a little nicked up, as we saw as he limped off the field last week, and he obviously needs a break playing hard charging minutes. I wonder if you're going to have guys like Andrew Coe, now that Jack Hayton's back there with a booming foot, come up on the counterattack a little bit and cause some problems.
Well, we saw him do that last week. He had 2 interceptions where he inserted himself on a blitz, one for a try and one that
almost was a try.
Set up a try. Yeah, almost.
Yeah, a try he got. I think it got caught, and then it set up. I think the try that Dylan scored off the maul. I think.
Yeah. So we know that what he could do on defense. We know what Appy could do on defense. Besides bone crushing tackles, he's solid lockdown defense. So I think the thing that was missing last week was defense, particularly with that high scoring game. I think with the additions of Appy and Quinn, who Quinn was great at defense last year, definitely adds some nice security in that back line that I don't think we were necessarily missing, but that is much needed. Maybe new faces bring in a new mindset.
Well, I think the issue we had last week was ATL saw a soft spot in our defense where as much as Troy might have been out of place on some balls, as a fullback you can't cover the whole backfield, right? And ATL is so good at hitting that the gain line at such a speed that our wings had to come up and come in support. We do those chip kicks in places that our fullback hadn't moved over to yet, and we saw Troy have to go through a long distance to try and get those chip kicks. And by the time he got there, the bouncers were right to the ATL player. So I don't know if Dallas has the mindset to do that same thing against Jack Hayton. So I think we'll see a little bit more defense on the New York side. As we know last year, Quinn, I believe, is calling the defense on the back line. So now we have Quinn and a bunch of guys playing last year. I think he'll get him set up on the defensive side. Yeah, I don't think it was a lack of defense as more as the strategy against us was working a little better. Would you agree on that?
Yeah. I think they were definitely weak in their back three. Maybe it was a lack of communication. With Troy not making sure that his wings were back there to help him cover. Maybe it was him thinking that you could just do it all. We surely know what Troy can do on offense. I think his weak point has been defense, and ATL took advantage of that. So Jack coming in maybe switches that up and changes the ball game a little bit so that they know that we can get, maybe we'll be there with the ball, Johnny on the spot with the ball, and we'll get that that nice counter attack kick. Hopefully for let's see some 50-22s. I'd love to see some line out, some great booming kicks and some nice offensive lineouts on our part.
I mean, I think what we haven't seen, I would say, in the past 2 matches is forward handling the ball and pick and goes. Am I wrong about that, Mike? Has that been missing?
Yeah, we haven't seen Dylan Fawcett do what Dylan Fawcett does, where all of a sudden for 30 seconds he thinks he's a back and he'll do back stuff, which I absolutely love. I think we definitely haven't seen those guys picking and going. I think maybe that's just maybe they want to. Maybe they're working on the flow, more of a flow thing, and they're trying to get away from that in the hopes that someone doesn't get isolated and create turnovers. But who knows?
Our boy Jason is late. Jason, what the frig? You can't be late to the show, brother. But yeah, I don't know. I think one of the things that settles us down sometimes is the fact that our forwards are offensive minded with the ball in hand. And I think we need that settled down. And I think what it does is it kind of resets the back line, gives them their break, and they don't have to worry about making these extra passes, which we talked about. Speaking of extra passes, for those of you aren't aware, I'm going to post it in the group. On Tuesday morning, Jacks Rangers, which is the New England Free Jacks fan group, they do their show Tuesday mornings. I was a guest on the show. We recorded the other night. So check that out. We talk Free Jacks, we talk Rooney. And then Phil Harris, who's their organizer, their president, whatever you want to call him, their number one fan, is coming on our show to talk about these set of matches that happened, and obviously the upcoming home match against Rugby New York. Rugby New York against the Free Jacks. So please check both of those out. Make sure you're supporting each other. He does the same thing we do, just like we have other fan groups out there doing the same thing. So try and appreciate all the fan groups. But one of the things I talked about was he said the question he asked was, what is one of the things you think Rooney is doing poorly so far, right? And I was like, well, besides not having a game the first week, which isn't really that was kind of a joke. I said it's that extra pass. We're still looking for that extra pass instead of going down with support and just starting a new phase. I understand what we're trying to do with the back line, and I think it's great, but I think some guys have to keep their head on and not make that pass.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I think it was particularly true in the first game we played against Houston. Guys were looking for that extra pass. They were that mentality. It almost seemed like, like I don't want to be seen as the ball hog. Like, oh crap, I need to get this pass offer. But my team, that kind of like, backyard ball, like, oh, I got to get the pass offer. No one's going to pass it to me kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But I think last week, They did it, but it worked out well. As weird as it sounds like you have that Connor Buckley, behind, through the legs pass, which was some champagne rugby to the highest. It just seemed to work for some weird reason.
Well, so I'm going to use two.
Passes. Yeah, we're getting those extra passes in the first try. So
I would use two Ed Fidel runs to kind of make my point. The first one being his try he scored. He didn't have to pass, right? He juked out a couple guys, and he had support on his left and his right that were open. And what happened is nobody came in from the outside to try and stop him, right? So what happens on the second line break he has that he takes it real far, that inside man draws in, and what happens? We have an outside pass to Jason Emery, and Jason Emery gets his first try in 2 years. So I think that's more of what I would say we're looking to do, right? Is have the support there, and if you draw a defender in, get rid of it. But if you're not drawing that defender in, that defender is just going to screw up the other Rooster coming in to try and play that ball. So now it's two guys vying for the ball instead of an open pass.
Well, I think that comes down to like our support. I think our support was a lot better last week than it was against the SaberCats. I think we were trying to get that last pass off instead of going down to the ground. It seemed like Houston was picking off that last pass every single time. Now we're trying to get that last pass off, and fortunately enough, we got someone there. And while it may not be like the smartest tactical pass, at least someone was there. Hopefully this week we see it that, maybe they hold on to the ball. They decide go to ground and set that second phase up where that gap surely has to be because someone's got to be loose somewhere. And, but you know what? If it's not broke, don't fix it.
No, definitely.
Right now it hasn't killed us yet. So it's something that I'd hope they work on, but if it's not killing us right now, maybe something to be conscious in the back of our mind about.
Well, here's the thing also, penalties have been killing us the past 2 weeks. I don't know what it is about Rooney and handling penalties and handling errors. And, our buddy Sam Windsor, I don't know if he's eating popcorn before last match or whatever, but he had somewhere it just like obvious quick passes that he knew was coming and just kind of fumbled them. And I don't know if he was worried about, then making the next pass like we're talking about. But I felt like some of those handling errors, could have been fixed mid-game. And then, unfortunately, Sam had to come back in cold, which is something we forgot to ask him. Like, how was it coming back in cold for HIA for John Powers? And then he made another handling error, unfortunately. And I think that's just a byproduct of being cold and kind of going back in and going. You have a mindset all of a sudden that you're fine, and then all of a sudden you're not. So I wonder if we can get the handling errors and penalties under control. If we could do that, we'll dominate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think is the one thing that we didn't really talk about. We kind of mentioned it, but we didn't really talk about it. We've got McManus and Ellis on the bench. That's 2 9s. So what are we throwing in, McManus at 9, Andy at 10? We surely know that Andy can play 10, take over for Windsor. We got Jack Heighton is also out there, can play 10.
Well, here's the thing. So McManus can play 10, Andy can play 10. McManus can play 15. So I'm wondering if Sam if they take Sam off, right? That's what I'm thinking. Buckley comes off, Ellis goes in. Sam comes off, Jack goes up, McManus goes to 15. That's in my mind. That's how it would go. I don't know if you
But
agree with that.
to be honest, I don't know how it will go. I have no clue how they would play that. I don't know if they want to keep Jack, back at 15. Would they want to keep, would they want to, do McManus at 9, Andy at 10, maybe switch it up a little bit, maybe throw people around, just like, play some real, screwy rugby, throw, put, McManus at 15 for a bit, and, Andy at 9, and then Jack at 10, just to kind of like give guys get like a little rotation in to get a little breather if, there's, a long stretch. Who knows? It creates some, I will say, it creates an interesting dynamic where Dallas doesn't necessarily know what's going to happen.
Yep,
all of a sudden
absolutely.
you're dealing with Jack Huyton at 15 at 1 minute, and possibly McManus at 15 the next, and then Jack's at 10. Who knows? Hopefully, with that, the ability to distribute between the fact that you've got 3 good distributors hopefully on the field at all times, it creates some interesting plays and allows for some backline distribution and a 15 to insert at some point and get the ball out wide.
Well, here's the thing: we're severely missing the Nick Civetta right now, because if you think about it, all 3 of our legit locks are starting right now. So that's a little scary to me. Joe Basser is more of a loose forward than a lock. He doesn't have the height. So I'm going to assume Tucker goes in for Hewitt at 5 mid-match. And then we're going to see Basser take that spot. And then I think, depending on O'Connor and Heine, I think you're going to see the Butcher as a loose forward more than a hooker. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, that would be amazing. I'd love to see Butch maybe running the things at at 8, or getting some time in at 6, 7. I personally think he'd be perfect for 8. Moving from 2 to 8. And everyone says it. The new thing too is the modern hooker is a 4th loose forward. That's like kind of the thing that people have been saying. So it's not out of the realm of possibility for him. Things probably a little bit less tension on his neck.
Yeah.
I think he might that.
I think this is the match, depending on if we start to kind of gain some way in this match. This is one of those matches where you put Caleb Geiger in at like minute 60 and give him a full 20 minutes of play time at hooker. That'll get him some throws. That'll get him some scrums. And like we saw last week, he's like a mini fucking rhinoceros. I mean, you can't. He's like a mini gorilla. Caleb Geiger, if you guys didn't get to watch, with 2 minutes left, picks up a ball, and I'm not joking, runs through 4 defenders before somebody even attempts to stop him. And it doesn't. It took about 3 guys to drag him down. My wife was looking at me like a crazy person, because I was just, it's one of those things where as a big guy, you're like, this is the play. This is what's going on. Our buddy Jason saying Appy goes for 2 tonight. I don't know. We'll see. I have a feeling they know that what Appy can do. So I think maybe a little more Quinn, Coe, Emery scoring tonight. I think you kind of, almost like Ed Fidel, you got to kind of single out Appy for a double team, and that opens up everybody else. It is what it is. So real quick, we didn't get to do, hey, Rich, how you doing, Richard? Another good Rooster there. Let's go Rugby New York. So we didn't talk about our score predictions in last week's interview and show, because Sam was kind of just going through a lot of stuff with us. We forgot to do it. So what's your score prediction, Mike?
I believe that I have on my Super Brew. Let's see.
Super Brew official.
I believe I have Rugby New York by 7.
Okay.
I hope for more. I think it could possibly be a high scoring game. I hope that we get out of this and it's not by the skin of our teeth.
Yes.
So I'm saying conservatively, Rugby New York by 7. Hopefully it's more.
And I'm saying Rugby New York by 5. Jason saying Rugby New York by 11. Again, I'm always more conservative in all of my scores. I rarely think somebody's going to blow somebody out, because we've seen it too many times in this league where a blowout scheduled, put on the schedule, and all of a sudden it's a tight match. Do I think we win? Yes, but I'll say unconverted try. Here's Jason tooting his own horn. 6 for 6 again last week. I think
No,
the
Jason,
total.
I owned Super Brew last
Yeah.
week. I'm the leader.
With all the bonus points and all the other bullshit that goes ahead, Mike was also 6 for 6. I think he had 10 and 3/4 points. The big guy going 5 for 6. I was in like 11th place for the week. I'm still third. Overall, I've hit 15 for 18 matches. I think that's pretty good. So I'll take it. But I'm the big guy, Scott Farrar. That's Mike the Grand Poobah Parazzini. Wherever you are watching our brothers, Rugby United or Rugby New York, the Roosters. Hopefully we'll eke out a win here. New one up in Dallas. I'm very excited. Shout out to all those Dallas fans to see you guys excited on TRN. Watch it on TRN. We got about 5 minutes before kickoff. Enjoy, everybody. We'll see you on Tuesday.